Shoe stretching can play an important role in our shoe fitting protocol. It can allow us to get shoes to really fit those hard-to-fit feet. You will often notice that those same feet end up point stretching or customizing shoes on their own, but this is a painful procedure for the customer and unnecessary as we can do it for them. Often these people will end up wearing the wrong size shoe, wearing shoes that are too long to take advantage of greater width, or women wearing men's shoes for extra width and length. This does little and may even be detrimental in aiding the foot mechanics and contributing to the deformity. Knowledge of shoe stretching gives us a significant advantage over most shoe stores who do not have the ability, tools, nor knowledge to do the customization required for challenging feet. As specialists in this field, you should be comfortable in educating customers on the advantages of shoe stretching. If you are knowledgeable in the principles and methods of stretching, it can be a powerful tool. The type of feet that may require this type of customized fitting include large bunions, hammer or claw toes, excessive forefoot width, and haglins or pump bumps. The majority of stretching that we do involves the forefoot area, but these principles are applied to other parts of the shoe as well. Major principles to keep in mind are the following. Proper shoe stretching takes time. For an effective stretch, expect to keep the shoe for 48 hours. But don't leave it at one setting for 48 hours. A gradually increasing stretch is the most effective. When point stretching, remember to stretch all around the area as well. One bubble won't relieve pressure. Also, if stretching over a specific area in the toe box, remember to stretch for overall width as well. Finally, mark the areas where stretching is required by tape, and this will ensure that you stretch over the correct area. The following are basic tools you would use when stretching shoes. First is stretching solution. This is a solution of alcohol and water in a 50-50 ratio. The alcohol aids in absorption into porous leather as well as quick evaporation. You will also be using a width and length stretcher. Using the first knob will increase length. The second knob widens the forefoot area. And this is a ball and ring stretcher. Close it by squeezing it shut and fasten it at the end by flipping the lock and tightening the screw. Hand ground buttresses aid in stretching precision. They can be used to mimic prominences or add overall volume. These pieces are simply ground from scrap pieces of EVA. The first example here is a point stretch for a bunion. Note here that we stretch the global volume as well as the area over the bunion to give extra forefoot space. The first step in most stretching is to work the leather. We do this by first wetting the leather down on the inside. We use a solution of alcohol and water in a 50-50 ratio. The alcohol is present in the water to aid in quick evaporation and absorption into the leather. Spray down the inside of the shoe to avoid staining of the upper leather. Do not use too much at once or it will leach through. Gently rub the solution into the leather. Next, use the ball and ring stretcher to work and soften the leather. Move it all around the specific area to be stretched. This really softens the leather up in the area and makes it much more receptive to stretching. When doing this, it's best to use a scrap piece of leather to protect the upper of the shoe from the metal of the ball and the ring stretcher. Repeat those two steps a couple times for the best effect. The next step is to create a buttress over which the leather will be stretched. Use a piece of EVA and grind it into a dome shape that is higher and wider than the actual bunion. Leather does retract after being taken off the stretcher, so again, it is important that we stretch a greater area than the deformity will need. If the customer has a shoe with them that has already been stretched by their own foot, it is a great idea to use this to design your buttress. Carefully tape this buttress to the corresponding placement on the stretcher and insert the stretcher into the shoe. Fasten the shoelaces and tighten the stretcher moderately. Do not over-tighten as splitting of the seams may occur. Continue gentle tightening over the course of 2 days. When stretching for greater overall width inside the shoe, remember that in stretching it outwards, it pulls the upper down. What we need to do in this case is grind a buttress to maintain the height of the toe box, particularly over the sulcus area, to result in an overall greater volume, not just width in the forefoot. Make a wide, dome-shaped buttress of EVA, and again tape it to the top of the stretcher. After working the area with stretching solution and the ball and ring stretcher, apply the stretcher and tighten it over the course of a few days. Stretching for hammer or claw toe deformity involves stretching over the toe box of the shoe. You should probably do this after you've done the previously demonstrated global volume stretch to create more space and accommodate claw or hammer toes. You should have already marked the area to be stretched with tape. Work around this area using stretching solution and the ball and ring stretcher. And remember to use a piece of leather to protect the upper of the shoe against marking. Next, tighten the stretcher directly over the area to be stretched. You will need to leave the stretcher in place for a few hours. When you remove the ball and ring stretcher, you will be left with a prominent bubble type stretch. To smooth this out, again work around the area with the ball and ring stretcher. Haglins or pump bumps are bony prominences on the posterior calcaneus, usually over the insertion of the Achilles tendon. Sometimes these are painful and require accommodation. The plastic heel counter in most shoes allows heating of the heel counter to be the most effective method for stretching over this deformity. Heat, but don't overheat and melt, the area to be stretched. Using the ball and ring stretcher, work around the area to be stretched, then set the ball and ring stretcher. You can also apply some heat again when the stretcher is applied, using the metal of the device to warm the heel counter. You will probably have to move and set the stretcher a few times, as typically the bump is bigger than the area stretched by a single ball and ring stretcher. Stretching solution is not absorbed well by synthetic materials, so use heat to work the material. Synthetics also have a greater memory, so always stretch beyond the point to which you desire. These materials are very easy to melt, so be careful not to overheat the area. It's best to keep the heat gun moving and periodically feel the area for temperature. Keep in mind that multi-layered materials like Gore-Tex will be extremely resistant to stretching. Synthetics mold quickly. You need only leave the stretcher on until the material cools. Again, follow this by working the area around the point stretch to smooth appearance.